But growing up in Cape Charles, oh Lord.
Well, I was assuming that you two probably grew up together, but maybe
Andy's 3 years older than me, so he,
I was just thinking
you
about
catch that. Yeah, maybe he did. No, I'm 3 years older than him. So back in the day when you're that age, 3 years,
3 years is a big difference.
Yeah.
It's like 10 years difference, back when you were teenagers.
Yeah.
That's all of us would have.
Oh wow. Yeah, I had hair.
Yeah, you're like twice the height of me. That's 1973. That's Harold behind
the
us.
Smith curse of hair.
That's Steve on if you're looking at it on your right, and I'm the front
I'm
left.
the good looking one.
That's great.
But now growing up Cape Charles, Cape Charles, the park, everybody wants to know, the park building now was Cape Charles High School. And I'm not sure exactly when it started, but the last year was 87.
Yeah, I think it's 1912, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe they built the hump and they had a 2-for-1 sale. They built the hump in the school maybe. 1987 was like your last year was 86, mine was 83. But no, we walked to school, of course didn't have a damn bus.
We didn't have hills, but we walked school both ways, no matter what the weather was.
It could be 2 foot of snow both ways. I remember as elementary, we'd go home for lunch. We'd walk home from
We did too. Or we go to
we didn't have a cafeteria.
Go to Savage's drugstore.
I'd sneak out the back and go. I think it was the Exodus that owned the store, right behind the school.
The Rain.
We were there, yeah.
Okay.
You can get enough candy to rot your teeth.
Well, then it was later. Well, that was Jimmy Parks later.
Yep.
You can't beat Jimmy's meat. Growing up, all the lots, which basically are all built on now. We played baseball, football, group of kids, 10 or 12 kids. We'd go to these empty lots, and he even wanted to turn them into stadiums and stuff. Back when we were young, going, all right, we're gonna put bleachers up and stuff. One was on the corner of Monroe and Pine, which is, I guess, whatever it is,
the treatment plant on there.
Nuclear bomb plant or something.
Played there so much that the diamond, you could actually make out the diamond on the field. And it had the perfect tree, which was right across the street from the Carlson's house. That was the right size, because we didn't play T-ball, everything was pitch. But that tree was the right size that the ball wasn't going to get past the tree. It may not bounce straight out because it had really coarse bark, but you had a backstop.
There's a story of if you hit a home run over the alleyway, which was, I won't mention any names, I won't get into the story. An older fella came and hit one over the fence, and he jumped over. The man that lived in the house didn't like us kids retrieving our balls, so this older fella came and hit one over there and jumped the fence, and to put it mildly, they got in a little tussle, and maybe even a shot was shot up in the air, or shot somewhere.
It was a very low caliber, but for a little kid, I was scared.
Oh, we thought we were in the Middle East or wherever the heck that stuff goes on. It goes on here now.
Yeah, and as a kid back then, I always thought if we were always in the wrong. I never thought that an adult would do anything wrong, so I've seen them fighting.
We wanted our baseballs back.
We did.
And the guy had a bushel basket of baseball. But anyway, we played basketball at the Bloat's house
right there on the garage.
On Bay Avenue, the Heath house, which was next door to Granddaddy on Madison. Nobody said a word about dribbling basketballs in their, driveway till dark.
And the number of cherry trees in Cape Charles back.
Well, that was the one thing. And we used to walk around and pick cherries that you could eat. And actually this year I bought 3, disc caliper trees for my, I guess it'd be my children and grandchildren to have because we remember, you could stop and eat all the cherries you wanted till you got sick.
You didn't have to go home
and you don't see that hardly anywhere anymore. Not edible cherries.
Mulberry trees. Your grandfather had a mulberry tree. God, it was tall. You climb it and eat.
Pop Jake Lamberson. We all played Little League over the hump. grew up playing there. You ride your bicycle or walk, or underneath or over top. That was certainly special.
Parents didn't have to worry about getting you to practice. Everything was in our grasp. We could get there ourselves. You didn't need your parents to get you there. People nowadays, the parents have got to take their kids to practice here, there, and back then we just, just went. The beach was our babysitter. I can remember getting up, 6, 7 years old, putting on a pair of cutoff jeans and going to the beach. Your parents didn't carry you to the beach. We went to the beach.
We were all taught how to swim.
And Joyce Heath was there every day, I think. Suntan. So there's always an adult there.
Day or night, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know. Little League was awesome here.
Yes.
I mean, we had 4, 5, 6 teams, maybe more at the heyday. It eventually went down to not enough kids in town, so we had to go up to Nassau and join Shore Little League. Baseball has been huge in my life, for one thing, and sports, but especially baseball.
But your senior year, well, it was a championship.
Well, Cape Charles High School, this is one of my proudest moments and times. We won the Eastern Shore District in 1983, which was first time in 23 years that Cape Charles has won any kind of Eastern Shore or any kind of district thing. We just didn't have a number of kids.
Well, I was going to say Cape Charles was by far the smallest.
Well, I think my senior year, I think we had 28 boys in high school that could play sports, and that's 9th through 12th, so four grades. So I always said, there was a few people that were pretty good, a few people that were okay, and the rest couldn't walk and chew gum, but we made it work. But we won the district, which was huge. What was really cool at the time, a few years before that, a lot of great athletes grew up in Cape Charles. A lot of great athletes. But before that, we would mainly get beat. But those couple years that we got a little better, we went from having just parents at the ball game to my senior year, we'd have 200 or 300 people all up and down the county because they were just so excited about little tiny Cape Charles.
We even had people pulling up next to the field when we would practice and would actually sit there and watch us practice.
Oh yeah,
I mean, we were small town good, we're Eastern Shore good. So
I tell you, back in the day, I can remember I was too young to be playing football then, and I wasn't that good anyhow. But back in I think it was 1951. Lloyd Kellum was on the team, and we beat Northampton 93-0. And they were much bigger than
back when you always used to do those Thanksgiving games.
Thanksgiving games, and they went we went undefeated that year. I was a kid.
There were some tremendous. Well, the 23 years in baseball since Cape Charles won the district. Clem Pruitt was on it. Jackie Bailey was on it. Well, Jimmy Pruitt, both Clem and Jimmy, I think. I know Clem was drafted. Jimmy
I'm not sure.
Should have been. Miss all those guys. Jackie's still here with us. But that year, everything clicked. We had great. I was a pitcher, Vance. Down here, Vance's Furniture was a catcher. Andy was, a younger fella. He played outfield.
I didn't even weigh 100 pounds. My first year,
It was just, I don't know. It was magic. It was like a movie. It really was. Because it was funny. These big schools would look at us, and we did pretty good.
And for as many people that loved us and watched us and everything, as that many people that didn't. We played that championship game. Had to play on a neutral territory. We had to play Arcadia at a neutral site. And we played Arcadia at Shingatig. And, I'm not good at math, but Arcadia and Shingatig kind of right next to one another. So we had to go up there.
There was more people from down here than it was.
Everything was stacked against us, and it still worked out.
That's great. Well, I kind of, like when we were in school, it sort of felt a little bit that way too, David. The years I was in school, we were pretty mediocre.
Well, were so small at the end that, you know, it was, you know, we had to play different schools a lot of times in different sports. But I just like great coaches. Butch Schrabb is coaching football. Butch still lives on Monroe. You know, a lot of stories about that. One time in summer practice, you know, we didn't have many. I mean, we could barely field a football team. I mean, you know, barely. And something wasn't going right. And he pulls up in his old '66 Ford pickup truck, old Blue, I think he named it, or something. And we were I guess screwing around or something. He didn't cuss.
That's what
we knew of. But anyway, you know, he got mad. He just took off in his truck. You know, and we're just standing around the field. Well, man, well, we're done. You know, we're not going to have a team this year. We're not going to have a coach. And then he comes back and pulls back up. But it was funny too. Back in the day, we didn't get coaches didn't give water to the kids or the players till after practice. So it's 95-degree summer football practice. I mean, no water.
Well, he gave me a salt tablet one time, and as old as that bottle looked, my dad, dad who played Cape Charles too, just like your dad did, is probably something that my dad ate out of the same bottle. It's probably that old. And of course, you know,
that's probably where my brain damage came from.
Let me restart it.
All right.
Okay.
Butch was a good coach.
He was
a good history teacher too. I remember I had him for history in my first year playing football. And I'll never forget, he put me at nose tackle. To this day, I still think he was trying to get me to quit because I weighed 94 pounds.
Get you killed.
But I stuck it out, and I remember we were sitting in class. He gave the class an assignment. He told me to come up to the desk. I had no idea what I'd done wrong. And he and I sat there and watched old films of Clint Pruitt and stuff like that playing football at school while everybody else was doing the history assignments. If you're watching this, Butch, I really still to this day, I appreciate that. But, and speaking of history, I can remember I had Betty and I, as well as my dad, and she heard a new teacher who had started the year previous say something. And I wasn't a good student, so I probably deserved what the guy said. But it was another teacher that I was supposed to have this upcoming year, and she heard him. I don't know if he had said he was going to fail me. You know, he said that before the year started or whatever, but she was our guidance counselor, and she didn't like what he said about me, and I was her only student for history that year. She didn't. But she did not want me to sit in his classroom because she didn't like what he said about me. And she would take care of you. Ms. Nye would take care of you, and
yeah, she was a nice lady.
Yeah, I'm as interested in history as anybody now, and I'm sure I owe all that to Ms. Nye. And like I said, I wasn't a student. English, I was very terrible with English, and my dad had figured out what worked. He gave my English teacher my car keys. He didn't take them. He gave them to my English teacher. We'd walk in. Denver Kidder was the English teacher.
Give him the car.
He'd smile and would dangle my car keys as the whole class is walking in. You know, that's something somebody probably go to jail for nowadays. You know what? It worked. My grades went right through the roof within a week. We all laughed about it, but it wasn't as funny then as it is now.
I was supposed to pitch one day. This is senior year, so that was more important than any kind of school. I was like Andy. I did what I had to do. You know. But anyway, Christine Tankard married Chuck Tankard years ago. She was a French teacher. I didn't want to take French. I
took French.
You know, I just figured I'd never use that, which I probably could now, maybe. But anyway, I was supposed to pitch that day, and the bell rung to leave school. Well, the game started like 30 minutes later, and I had to go warm up. And she was like, I get up, walk out. She told me to sit back down. And I'm not gonna say what I said, but I just kind of gave her that kiss my something look, and it kept on walking. That was a hell of a lot more important than French or any class at that point to me. But no, the great coaches, earlier baseball especially, and PE teacher late Kenny Collins. He was an awesome player in his own right in his day. then we had Gary West, which kind of took us to the level where what we reached. And if it wasn't for Gary, I don't think we probably would have even made it.
We had him at Little League, Babe Ruth, high school.
He's coached so many kids between baseball, basketball, softball, girls.
I can't imagine the hours that he put in coaching.
I can't.
People around here.
All these guys are very influential in my life, and it's highly respected at the top of the list. One thing I wanted to touch on, I got a little prop here, but anyway, I want to talk about growing up in Cape Charles and Hardheads and the Pinheads. but to talk about the Hardheads, we gotta drink a Bud Can. So I hope we're not infringing on any trademark. We could cut. Well, I couldn't find a 6-pack of 12 ounce. So I had to buy 16.
And the tabs used to pull off too.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Didn't say it.
You could really get interested in a minute. There's always been a group around here, and they've been known as the Cape Charles Hardheads. Yeah. And it was a group of guys, basically, in a sense, probably 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years older than me. So I'm 58 now. Andy, what are you, 50?
56.
56. So they're, in the upper or mid 60s and pushing even 70. My group, which was me, Vance, Jeff Conroe, a few others, Keith Buhner Bennett, rest his soul, Addison Rustine. So we always hung out with the Hardheads. Now, when I say Hardheads, they're pretty Hardheads. They didn't hurt anybody but themselves.
Exactly.
And they might have hurt. Well, they didn't. They helped Anheuser-Busch stop, and they continue to do so.
It kept them going.
But one of the cool things was most of them had a nickname, and if I forget some of these guys, I apologize. Probably one of the first Hardheads I want to mention is Phil Stiles. Now Phil really didn't have a nickname, but it's the Stiles boys that grew up in town, and
he was probably the most honorable of them.
It was like five of them: Donnie, Junie, Phil, Big Rick, and Kenny. Betty Grace, their mother, bless her heart. One quote we still quote her today is talking. We had it on tape one time. Someone made it home tape. And one of her quotes was, "Y'all crazy as shit," but talking about mainly her sons.
Oh yeah.
But we had Big Rick Stiles, which is Rick Stiles was Big Rick, Kenny Stiles was Chief, Jack Willis was Buster Crab.
Jack Willis was a Hardhead. I didn't realize that. Buster Crab. They still call him that.
Grubworm.
Ed. Ed. No. Edward. What's Grub's name? Grubworm. Bender. Mark Bender, Grubworm. Won't tell you where I heard he got that. Frank Wendell was Termite. I also called him Waterbug. He called him, man, and I called him Waterbug. He came to help coach football in summer practice, and he's running around like a waterbug. Like we're trying to tackle him, he's stopping and going backwards.
And it wasn't good with Wendell, Waterbug Wendell. I mean, it goes good together.
People go, but he was Termite, or is Termite. B.B. Barbin, rest his soul, Brian Barbin, one of the nicest guys you ever want to meet. Jeff Thorne's a Space Ghost. George Wilkins, which nobody knows that, was Digger, but his dad was a funeral director.
There's some up on the trailer court.
Oh Lord.
In later years.
Chuck Churn, Cheese, Chuck E. Cheese is what I'll still call him, Cheese. Frank Russell, Pud, Freshwater Frank, Pud, Russell. They always called me Smith, and then it went to Smitty. I may be forgetting the others, but now we would all hang out, but we like drinking beer on the beachfront. All right, so we didn't live 2 or 3 blocks from home, so even if we drove around town, which we never drank and drove.
Far.
But well, basically we were on the beachfront drinking beer, you know.
Till 10 o'clock.
Till 10 o'clock every single night. Well, no, not every night, but you may have. Nobody said a word. Cops, as you know, Bill, you know, they knew what you were doing.
Well, Styles' dad was a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you had Charlie or Charlie Powell, but
We had Ricky and Beretta. I can't remember, his last name was Fox, but he looked just like
brother.
Well, you talking about the cop now?
yeah, back in the 70s, early 80s.
Foxwell?
His last name was Fox.
Fox, yeah.
But we called him Beretta.
Yeah, he looks like Beretta.
Because he looked just like the guy from the TV show Beretta.
But all these hardheads, most of them are still here, and I think because they're pickled. Because they like their alcohol.
Some of them are right across the street.
And, you know, I mean, that's why they're still here.
Did you mention Skippy Bennett?
Oh, you got Skippy
was one of them,
Bennett.
Skippy.
I'm going to forget some of these guys.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
And you ain't gonna get no nicer than Skippy, I mean.
Oh, no, Skippy Bennett.
He'll greet you the same way today as
Yeah.
it would 30 years ago.
Yeah.
What's up, Bubba?
And like going back to the athletes around here, they were all, most of them were pretty good athletes. Well, we had a softball team, you know, in Indiantown one year, and I was on the Hardheads. But I was a pinhead. But they always told me and Vance and the pinhead group that their heads weren't hard enough to be hardheads, so they called us pinheads. And to this day, they still say, as big as my head is, it's much bigger than a pin, and just as hard as either one of them. But we had a softball team in the league, right? And one year, I think we won the league. And half the guys would drink beer before, during, and after the game, and drunker than hell, but they had so much talent, that, you know, and catch the ball and throw it, and they were so used to playing that way that. And it was funny how, you know, all these other teams, the guys taking it real serious, and they'd bring their bat bags and the gloves, you know, 4 or 5 bats and gloves, and they'd reach you up with holding a glove in their hand and beat the guys that took it real serious. But then there was going back to the athletes that we had around here. I want to tell one story of the hardhead. This is Termite, Frank Wendell. He told me a story one time, and I think it was Charlie Powell was the cop. And the plan was for the guys, they had a real small car, and the police car was a big car. And so the plan was to zoom up down Mason Avenue where the cop was sitting and get the cop to chase them, and they would turn into the school, the park building, and their little car could make it out of the fence by Park Road, which was only 7 or 6 foot wide, and get the cop to chase him. And when he pulled into the schoolyard, they would lock the gate, you know, and he couldn't get out that Park Road. Well, they said that they're getting this is at night, you know, of course, the cop's sitting there on Mason down here by wherever Strawberry and Mason, and so they zoom by him, or the cop doesn't chase him. So they go back around, you know, zoom by him again, the cop doesn't chase him. They did it like 3 times. They finally realized the cop car was broke down and they couldn't get him to chase him. But they were going to lock him in the schoolyard, you know, just something to do. But no, they didn't bother us. They knew what we were doing. I mean, one time, well, you may remember when Jeff, I won't say his last name, I already said it, but the cop stopped us came up on the boardwalk and said, y'all dumped that beer out or something. And Jeff goes, all right, and drag it down. And he got in a little trouble. He didn't get put in jail.
Well, sometimes it was the friends around you that got you in trouble. I remember at 10 o'clock, we had a curfew on the beachfront. You know, 10 o'clock, you had to be off the beachfront. So we'd move to the parking lot from where the liquor store was.
Well, across from Kelly's.
Yeah, across from Kelly's.
What we call the parking lot.
Yeah, that's the parking lot. And if we got ran off of there, we'd move it to the harbor. You know, you weren't going to get us out of town. You know,
Boardwalk, harbor.
Yeah.
I mean, boardwalk, parking lot, harbor.
Yeah.
And then home.
One night we're sitting there in the parking lot. Yeah, we were being a little bit loud. We were, you know, hooting and hollering, and a lot of people started to learn, well, let's go to Cape Charles to hang out with those guys. And it was
for the
one of
people
those,
in the county, I mean, this is where people came to hang out.
Cars all around, and we had a circle of people like crazy.
Well, we didn't have to go anywhere.
No.
That was a cool thing, you know, because we could just go right home down 2 or 3 blocks. The other guys, of course, had to go back, or girls.
Yeah.
You know, so the later generation, when it started going to four corners and but we didn't have to do that. So we stayed in town.
But Buddy Brown was the mayor at the time, so he lived right there on the corner of Randolph. You know, right there. You know, only a block away from that parking lot. We were being loud. Charlie Powell pulls up. Says, "All right, y'all making too much noise." Buddy said, "Y'all need to turn it down." And I looked and I said, "Sorry, Charlie." Well, at the time there was a commercial on tuna fish. That "Sorry, Charlie" was a slogan. Of course, everybody. I don't know why they thought that. They thought I was being smart, but I was literally saying sorry. And they were, ooh. Charlie looks at me and said, "Andy?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "All right, Buddy told me." He said, "If you were out here, y'all can stay out here all night. Y'all have a good night." I mean, just stuff like that is what would happen in Cape Charles.
Well, one other story, and this was Phil Stiles told me one time, said him and two or three guys, or a couple guys, were riding around Cape Charles and they're drinking beer, right? So, you know, as we all would ride around town 100 times a night, and the back seat of the car, they would throw all their cans in the back seat, and they got stopped. And it might have been Charlie Powell, and they stopped and said, "You know, y'all need to go home." And they just looked at him because they had one 6-pack left, and they said, "Well, we just got this one 6-pack." And he said, "Well, drink that 6-pack and go home." You know, after they'd already drank a case, you know, kind of thing. But just drink that and go home.
I don't remember of anybody ever having an accident or getting hurt or anything.
We weren't.
Yeah, we.
I want to say we're smart. I don't know. I mean, we didn't
cruise around.
Screw up.
Yeah,
you know, we knew right from wrong. We were raised right.
I heard a story. I don't know, maybe it may not even been true, but it sounded good. It was like you all talking about. It was a group riding around the beachfront, and it could have been the Hardheads or something. And then it had cops stopped them, and it was Forrest Stiles, Junie's father.
Junie. Oh, Junie's dad. Okay.
His dad, yeah. And apparently there was beer in the car or something like that, and he told them. I can't remember all the details of it, but the bottom line was it ended up that they ended up in the cop car, and one of them was driving the Forrest. I think he drank some of the. Anyhow, he was out of it, and so he was in the back of the car, passed out or something, and they were driving in the cop car. Right. Now they could have all been somebody made up, but it's like made a good story. Anyhow.
No, probably not. No. It had a lot of truth to it. I had my cooler shaking a couple times. "Well, we get off in a half hour. We're going to be back here in a half hour." I said, "All right, I'll save you a couple."
Yeah.
They were all good people.
But
I think deep down they looked out for us too.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't make a lot of noise. You know, play the music loud. I mean, we knew what to do and what not to do, and what we get away with and what we couldn't. And basically, I want to say that we were raised right, certainly.
Couldn't do another thing. Did y'all ever slide down the side of the hump with a piece of tin?
Not just the side of the hump. We went down the hump itself, which I enjoyed more than the side, because the ride was a whole lot longer when you went down there.
Yeah, we did that.
I'm not going to mention anybody's name, but I remember he was passed out about halfway down, and one of the sleds hit him in the head about halfway down. I mean, nowadays you probably wouldn't laugh. It'd be wrong to laugh. But his body, I mean, he just spun around on the ice.
We were still laughing.
And all you could hear him say was, "Ow." I mean, he was feeling no pain. I mean, you could have probably operated on him and it'd been safe. He wouldn't have needed anything. Put him under. But
certain years, you know, it would freeze all the way with the snow and ice at the top of the hump, and we on the metal run sleds or whatever you call it, we could go all the way to the firehouse. On the streets. And we were talking about this earlier, throwing snowballs at cars going around town. We were on top of the hump, and of course they couldn't come up the hump with a car, or if the times they could, we would just run down the side of the hump, and then they'd be up top, and they couldn't catch us. But that was a blast.
That just reminded me. And I was up at the top of the hump. We had a guy, and if you need to bleep out names. There's a guy named.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And
Just blow up.
I remember as a kid him riding around with blow-up dogs in the car. But when I had gotten a little bit older, when I got a little bit older, he was on a bicycle. And the only thing I could compare his bicycle to was Pee Wee Herman's bicycle. And he carried a antenna that he had ripped off somebody's car. He would extend it, he would whack cars with it, would whack you with it. If you got too close,
screwdrivers.
You throw screwdrivers at people.
If you rode by him on it, he was on the bus, so if you rode by him too close, you know, like to his liking, he'd flick a screwdriver at your car and stuff.
I was never one to let well enough alone. I saw him one day and I'm making faces, you know, it's like no way an older person's gonna catch me on a bicycle. I got a little BMX bike, you know, I got from Watson's Hardware. He starts after me. Well, I'll take off. Oh, I'm gone. Left him in the dust. I got to the top of the hump and look. He's steadily coming, like the same speed, never slowed up. I'd go a little bit further and stop, and he's still coming.
Like the Wicked Witch of the West.
He had the same posture as that lady that was riding the
following the yellow brick road. He was chasing you with the jet bridge.
You have a dress on?
Finally, I just had to go home, put the bicycle in the backyard. But I mean, every time I stopped and looked, he was just a steady pumping. I mean, coming to the knees.
One thing about too, we all hunted Tinkhams Pond right over here, which is on the east side of Marina Village East. Ride your bikes, ride your car, ride your walk, carrying your shotgun. You know, too many people trying to hunt the same spot. We also hunted on the point, which is
back of where the
Oyster Farm, Kings Creek, across from Cherrystone Campground Dock. I can remember it'd be a dozen of us kids early in the morning. Ducks, these dipper ducks, you know, flying 100 miles an hour, and one of them fly over, and somebody would get lucky enough to hit it and knock it down, and every 12 guys would go, I got it, mine. Who the hell knows? It's 4 pounds of lead being thrown at them at one time. And who wants it anyway? You wanted to bragging rights that you hit this duck on 5.
Now my first one I shot, it was a canvasback. That was my very first duck.
Well, that's good.
And you get lucky. That's probably no better place to pass shoot ducks because it's so narrow there. And a diving duck doesn't like flying over land, likes following the water out.
Shoot across.
And everything that flies across that mouth, pretty much, unless it's too high, he's within range. But to picture 12 kids now going through town with shotguns, you know, nowadays you probably have a SWAT helicopter coming in. And we do the same thing in people's yard. I can remember walking through shooting woodcock out of people's yards in the winter when the ground would get hard. And woodcock's a good eating bird. And the eelgrass patch, you know,
times have changed, but in my first year of college, in 1984, I went to North Carolina Western, and my roommate was from Long Island. He never eaten squirrel before. And I had taken my shotgun. I was actually on the ski team at North Carolina Western. Well, he hadn't never eaten squirrel. I rode around the neighborhood and shot one out of the truck window, and then took it back behind the dorm and fried it up for him. Nobody said a word, you know. That was 84. I don't think you can carry a shotgun to college or anywhere in the neighborhood and get away with it.
And speaking of the point, between that and town, we always called it the old beach. It was an old dump there, and generations before me, and probably not many after us. But about halfway down, there was this ditch that came out from back street right on down, and the ditch was so deep, you could walk in it, and the sides were over your head. I mean, as a kid, I mean, that's like, you know, I mean, you're in trench warfare, you know, in your mind, you know, but the bottles that we would find there, and I would pick up broken pieces of pottery from the railroad, and if it had the railroad logo on it, the antique shop would buy it. They would give me these little plastic buckets. If you fill that bucket up with the logo on it, you get $5 a bucket. And of course, I later find out there's vases over at Bay Creek that are filled up with these broken pieces of pottery.
Beachfront, some of them.
It's probably some child labor laws that were broken in order to fill those vases. I don't know if the statute of limitations run out or not, but it was just another adventure that you could have in Cape Charles. I mean, we were never bored, and it's amazing that you did not have to leave Cape Charles to have fun.
Did y'all ever take your BB guns or rifles or whatever and walk across the harbor and go down to the point at Plantation Creek? do that kind of thing? You go off the sand?
Well, we would hunt Plantation Creek, and I had permission to hunt Hollywood Farm, of course, where Bay Creek is now. I mean, I hunted that all through high school.
Yeah.
And of course, you had Allagood Pond, you know, and I was always more interested in ducks than deer. Dad was interested in deer, which meant I was supposed to be deer hunting. I would do the duck hunting when Dad was at work. But I remember even falling through the bay. The bay had froze over, and I felt I needed to get out to where the ducks were. And went down to the old beach, the old ferry slip down there, and started walking across the ice, falling through. And of course, then we didn't have the waders that came up to here. You only got the Uniroyal hip boots that you bought. You know, if you couldn't buy it at Watson's, you didn't need it. You know, we didn't know about malwater, and remember falling through, and I went over my hip boots, and I think it was like 18 degrees. And looked down, and Dad's shotgun's on the bottom. I was like, yeah, I need to get that. You know, I'm not going in. So I went down to get that, and got back, and the slush is forming in the hip boots before I got home.
Well, we used to walk out to the end of the jetty all the time. I mean, every day almost. And
that was
one story with the bay being froze over, and this was, I think, 77.
Yeah.
So I would have been 12. But anyway, it was going back to Phil Stiles and Chuck Churn. Well, the whole bay was, I don't know if I ever told you this, the whole bay was frozen. And the only water, well, of course, can't see the whole bay, but the turn of the jetty on the harbor side, there was a hole about 100 feet by 100 foot by 100 foot. Only water anywhere you could ever see. And Addison and I were on the boardwalk, all of a sudden we hear these shotguns going, boom, 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 boom. We were right by the ravine. Well, Phil and Chuck I've always been big duck hunters. Anyway, they had taken a John boat out there. Every duck that flew by saw that water, fell right in that hole. And they for a little while longer here, they come dragging the boat back up. They had every single kind of duck you could ever think about, and a lot of them. And so we helped them get everything back on the truck and everything. And of course, they hauled Button out of town. But every duck, because the whole bay was frozen. But we used to go, we'd walk out on the end of the jetty in that ice stuff. And I mean, it's slippery and treacherous enough to try to do it when it's not ice. Right. Nobody ever got hurt.
Yeah, we did. That was the thing, we didn't fish off the end of the jetty.
And every fish
in the harbor.
But of course, the raw sewage went in the harbor then too, and I think fishing went down when
the brown trout.
When they stopped.
Well, that's my grandfather Lamerson, Pop Jake. I grew up fishing with him and Meemaw, which my grandmother. It kind of was my babysitter for Mom. He loved to fish, and I let her go with him. And when you could catch anything in the harbor, I don't know what you catch now, hardly anything. But I remember the one time the bay froze, and Keith Bennett had that big boxer. He had 120 pound Barney. And we went out there, and that dog followed us along the edge of the water, the rock of the jetty. But when we got out to the end, he walked about 30 yards out, and the waves, it was frozen, but you know how the waves and the ice going. And I swear, God was looking out that day, because if that dog had broken through the ice, Keith would have tried to get him. It wasn't in no way.
Now, speaking of fishing up at the mouth of the harbor, there was a fish trap at the mouth of the harbor. And I remember paddling. This is before I knew how to get Dad's boat and run that around. I paddled over to that fish trap. And there were some gray trout swimming around there, as long as your arm around the top. Of course, I'm in there trying to dip them out. I think I got one or two with a dip net. And I even tried to cast, and they were too worried about swimming around in there that they weren't trying to get them. And then this airplane circling over me. Of course, I had to be my uncle. It's your dad. He was flying for the state at the time, and Dad knew about that little fishing trip I had before I got home. But
I got a story.
But we ate trout that night.
I got a story.
They still ate it.
We were doing a Jan and myself and Stiles, Junie, were fishing Plantation Creek one day, and we were casting for speckled trout, and this plane came over. And man, it came over fairly low. Wow, that's cool, and it went on by us, and then next thing I know, look, he's circling back, Boy, that's cool, really cool. Look, he's got pontoons and all that kind of stuff. And keep on. They said, look, he's landed on the creek.
That sounds like Willie Parker.
And then he taxied up to us. He says, you boys don't have any life preservers on.
No.
Take it.
And then in the winter, at the end of Monroe, of course, even in the summer, you had this eelgrass patch, right off the beach there, right off of Monroe. And our beach then, I mean, it's nothing like what the town has now. I mean, there were spots where the bay
water came up to
the bay hit the boardwalk, and you would jump down, and sometimes you'd have to jump up just to look over the boardwalk, and they just didn't have the sand there. But there off the end of Monroe, it seemed to be the place to go. It's right off Monroe. Of course, I was brought up just two houses from the beach, so I'd walk down there. And in the summer, you had the people that would walk through the eelgrass, and then you had the people that would walk around the eelgrass. But in that eelgrass, I mean, they take a crab net and they dip up soft crabs. I mean, it's almost like you grew up kind of like a Huckleberry Finn in those days. I mean, you really didn't have to go to the grocery store if you really wanted something to eat. You could just walk out the house and get something to eat. It didn't matter what time of the year it was. And I can remember one winter, it was people riding around, and there was some brant that were sitting right there on that eelgrass. Well, I got down there on the beach, and I saw the truck coming back around again, so I just ducked down. Well, boom, 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 boom. And all the brant, brant, if they hear gunshots, sometimes they'll just have a heart attack and just lay dead. But so all these brant are laying there dead. Of course, I run out and get a couple myself to take home, and of course they come back, and I ended up knowing who it was because I went back down
there. I shot a black dog off the boardwalk one time.
Is that right?
Riding around there, the one sitting out off the, off the pile at the beach, and just shot him. Wouldn't go.
Did y'all ever jump off the White Tower? We used to call it the tower that's halfway out. Jetty.
The water, I don't know, the water was ever deep enough for me to jump off. Oh, okay.
No, but it was wood.
Okay.
When we were growing up.
Okay.
And some guys would jump off the top. I'd jump off the bottom.
Right. And the turn of the jetty.
Yeah.
It went halfway up.
That's where that
range
was most on.
Yeah.
No, I never did that.
Now I jumped off the clam boats when they were tied up to the harbor. We jumped off. I mean, that was a good fall too. I mean, you jump off the clam boats.
Well, we would ski every night in Kings Creek along with your daughter.
Yeah.
And George Savage would always give you
your daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
George Savage always, you could walk in there, because that's where we bought our records and everything else, in the drugstore, magazines, and he'd holler, I saw you come out of the house the other day, and if you leaned a little bit back when you went over, you could probably get more spray. Always had it, always said, offering good advice.
A bunch of us would ski every evening, because the wind would lay down. Slick cam, and I mean, till dark. And, that's a lost art. Water skiing. You don't see hardly any kids.
Yeah, you're right.
Wakeboards and different things.
It would cost you $500 in gas a day if you water skied now like we used to.
I did, and going back to Kings Creek, I mean, maybe I invented this record, but I once ate 8 cans of potted meat from Kings Creek dock gas pump to Miss Jennifer at Cherrystone Dock, which is not that far. We're putting, but we might have had 1 or 2 of these, and I was really hungry, and I ate 8 cans, just pop the can and go like that in about 400 yards, maybe, and in about 5 minutes. So, I don't know if that's a record or not.
I don't know if I
that and chuck wagons.
Chuck wagons when they Stewart sandwiches.
Choke and puke. Yeah. We used to call them choke and puke. The microwavable sandwiches. We can get sodas there. It's funny, like that was Donnie Stiles owned it back in that day.
Oh yeah, the Kings Creek.
And we were teenagers, and we'd pull up there with a boatload of bikinis. Girls with bikinis, and all these guys would come running out, and they wouldn't let us leave. We'd get some fuel and maybe something to eat, and they wouldn't untie their boats because they didn't want us to leave.
Dad used to joke about he could go down to his boat, and he's like, he would get ice from where he worked and put ice in it. He said it was always more beer in the boat than what it started out with, and he started putting 2 and 2 together. And I'll never forget. There was a guy that worked for Don, if it was from Tangier, they called Homesteader.
Oh, yeah.
He said, Andy, I saw you going out the other day about 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, well, but I mean, boat was part, all this water around here, the water was part of, our land or where our playground, so to speak.
Well, going back to Sandy Island, I mean, when I was a kid, it was, what I remember, it's since gone. To the north of what we call the duck line, and then to the south of Wescott's Point, Hoffler's Point, was a big sandy island, sandbar, but at that time did not cover at high water. But we'd go, I mean, every Wednesday, Dad would take off half a day Wednesday, and we'd go every Wednesday afternoon and Saturday and Sundays, and that's where the Savages, Tom and George, and their family, and Russ, and the kids, and me, and my family, and all the local kids didn't have anything else to do other than Little League and sports and boating, but we'd all go hang out there. Sandy Island. I remember it was big enough, we had like a pond on it, there's water in the middle of the island.
Your dad had the first pontoon boat, I remember.
The first boat I can really remember, we had a pontoon boat. Johnson Outboard had made this air compressor that sat like an inner tube and had like 50-foot line air mass, these great big mass. And we like 50-foot long, and we'd go to like 3 foot of water and just scuba dive.
I
remember
your dad water skiing and put you on his shoulder.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I ended up doing that with when Scott Webb was dating Helen. And I could ski on 2 skis. He would ski on a what do you call it?
Slalom?
No, the boogie board.
Oh, the boogie board. Yeah, I never got much of the boogie board.
He could stand up on the boogie board and then stand up, jump on my back, and then he could climb up. I'm holding like this. He'd climb up and eventually get on my shoulders, and we would just ski. I mean, straight.
Wow.
Now. If we would ever fall, it was because my skis would dig in like this, and he'd go bam right on his face. But, no, it worked out. But I guess I got that from Dad.
Yeah, and even going over to the seaside, you kept water skis stayed in the boat. You always had a water ski, and you always had 2 spinning rods with a Cisco kid for the big bluefish used to be in the bay. But I can remember we'd leave out of Oyster, Dad threw the ski rope over, and I'd get on the slalom ski and. We'd go out, it was always a day in the weekend, you'd go out to Cobb Island. And he'd pull me all the way to Cobb Island on the water skis.
That's 8 months.
I think they just didn't want to hear me running my mouth on the boat, so they just put me back there and
wear you out there.
There were guys that skied across the bay. Scott Walker, I don't know if you know him or not, but I think he was one of the first ones I can remember reading in the paper.
Distance isn't much, because it's 7 miles from the...
I think I've gone from like Kittapee ships to Cape Charles Harbor or
well, that's
that wears you out.
I didn't weigh anything. I never felt that it was hard because I didn't weigh anything.
I bought my brother and I got our first outboard motor. Well, no, it wasn't our first one, but it was the first one that ran from your dad. Like 58.
I think your guy still owes some money on that.
And mopeds. I remember when mopeds
he sold
were they Baptist or something like that?
Batavus. Dad sold the mopeds.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he sold and he actually, this is kind of cool, Indian motorcycle. I can remember, I think it was 1975, 76. Indians motorcycle was big earlier. And then they kind of went out of business, sort of. Well, they started making dirt bikes back in in the mid '70s, and Dad sold Indian dirt bikes. They didn't make the big, hogs like Harley Davidson yet again. Because I remember the biggest one they had was either 175 or 125.
I remember he had.
Or it had a white. I like to find that. But I had Dad would let me use one of them. It was a 50 horsepower.
I would say it looked more like a mini bike.
It wasn't a real big dirt bike, that big, and it was it didn't have gears. So once you got going, it would fly once you got going, but it wouldn't take off fast because it didn't have the gears. Vance tried to pop a wheeler one time and it fell off the back of it over here at Little League Field. And we had a dip.
Right.
fell off and it cracked. It had a fiberglass gas tank. And it cracked the tank. And of course, I had to go back and and tell that. I did it. Didn't say Vance did it. But no, that was I remember it. But no, it was kind of neat.
I never saw those.
The biggest one was like 175.
That's the only one I remember because I remember
it wasn't
that.
a real big bike anyway, too.
Yeah.
I like to know who bought that. I like to have that back.
And speaking of the hump, coming up, it was we called it the sand dunes. On the right hand side as you're coming down the hump going towards the harbor. Of course, now it's all trees there, and that's probably because it's not us there. We would ride around it. I mean, that was our playground.
Well, I think they dredged sand up from the harbor, maybe.
Right. But I remember, even a car, if you had positive traction rear end, if you didn't stop, normally you could get through it. You had hills and stuff.
It wasn't packed, but it was.
I had a blast on that thing, and you get stuck every now and then, but it was, again, the older you got, the activities that you did just changed, but you did not have to leave Cape Charles.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And shooting pigeons, where Kelly's is,
Which Granddaddy owned it, or R.A. Parsons owned it, and Granddaddy, but that was in the family. But and then
going there shooting pigeons, and then where
AJ's grill is in the other building.
Yeah, the one next to that had that elevator shaft like for a car, and I would go upstairs.
You remember that?
Shoot pigeons.
Who was it now?
The building beside, where AJ's grill is now.
Yeah.
All right, the one they're redoing to the north.
Yeah, and your dad had a laundromat.
That was on the right
this
side.
was on
This
the
was on the
other
left side. But the big building that they're redoing, that had it was all that. At one time was a car dealership deal, garage too, and they had an elevator for cars, a shaft. And they would raise the cars up to the third floor, wasn't it? Third?
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember the opening. It was bigger than where we're sitting now.
Yeah.
But we'd go up there, do holes in the roof, so we'd shoot pigeons.
Yeah.
I had a poodle that was given to me by my Aunt Alice. Gigi. Yeah, you had to have thick skin, grow up and have a poodle named Gigi, but I made it. But anyway, Gigi would go and get those pigeons as they dropped. She'd run down the steps and get the pigeon, come right back up the steps again.
Who'd you get to cook them for you? That was at one time. One of those buildings was the fire department.
Yeah.
AJ's was the fire. AJ's was the fire department.
And the one to the left of it, that was a dealership.
That was a Pontiac dealership at one time.
I can't say as I ever remember.
Well, if you look inside all those buildings, from the convenience store to the as far as you can go in the buildings, they were all interconnected. I mean, you see the doorways and even the garage door size that have been blocked through the years.
AJ's. That's I guess they're getting ready to do something there now. I don't know what. Seems like it's been going on.
I did hear what was it, Love and Cannon or whatever on Strawberry is moving to that building.
Oh, is that right?
Okay.
Be one of the stores in there.